started. Are we recording video too?
Yep.
Okay. Is this my good side? What's the right answer?
I'm going to take
Oh, funny.
They're all good. They're all good.
That was the correct answer. See, you got to find your guy, you got to find a smart one.
Mandy, can you see?
Or train them. Okay.
Mandy, can you see our video or you just audio?
You said earlier she can see us and she can hear us.
Okay.
Both. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you start.
Okay. Well, Mindy, you know me, of course. You know my history. I'm Linda Giangreco Robinson. I'm debating whether I should drop the Giangreco and just go with Robinson, or Linda G. Robinson, or Linda Robinson, or just stick with Giangreco. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, that's who I am. My background was initially in art. I used to design costumes for the motion picture industry, and then I left that industry. I started that actually when I was 22, and then I moved to Santa Barbara, and I started a spa there, a hair salon there. Had that for a number of years, very successful. And then I serendipitously wound up going to a business management consulting course, and that a friend of mine was leading, and he did Fortune 500 consulting for businesses. And it became apparent as a participant in that course that I had an aptitude to be able to hear what was in the unspoken. Advantage here, this business, because, there's a lot we're willing to say out loud, and there's other things we really hold close to our heart. And those kind of shout loud and clear to me a lot. So I feel very fortunate to have that gift. So anyway, I wound up being hired by him, going to do business management consulting for his company, and he trained me. I left his company about 4 years later and started my own consulting company. Did international business management consulting for many years, and then dialed it back. Didn't have my passion for it anymore, and did a myriad of other things. And now I'm here, and I'm thrilled, and I'm happy, and I'm living in Manhattan, New York, with the love of my life, Gray Robinson. And if you want to know anything else about me, feel free to type it in a question or ask me, and about my qualifications or mistakes, even better. And we'll go from there. Gray, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I was a trial lawyer for close to 30 years, doing a lot of divorces and conflict resolution. The biggest thing there was that it was an adversarial environment, and you either thrive in those or you don't. And I'm a fighter. So, and my father used to tell me that I was much too kind to be a lawyer. So after 27 years of trying to please him, I decided to go do what I wanted to go do, which was be a healer. And I took a lot of courses, studied with a lot of healers and transformational people. And then I started teaching workshops and doing healing clinics all around the world for a number of years, and ended up with a spiritual organization that pretty much bankrupted me. And that was 2 years, end of 2013, I got booted out of that. And since then, I've been writing and helping people transform, and doing one-on-ones, and looking into workshops and other seminars and that sort of thing. And then I've been divorced twice. I have 2 sons, one married. They're in their 30s, and one's married, and the other one's a cowboy in Montana, and both of them are doing exactly what they want to be doing. great joy to me. So I've learned a few things along the way, and having been through a number of near misses after my second divorce 15 years ago, I discovered that looking for a soulmate just wasn't working for me, because whatever defect I have in my selection process, I kept finding the same kind of person that probably mirrored the defects that I have in my personality. But I just decided that the last one, which was particularly ugly, I just didn't want to have anything to do with relationships. I wanted to focus on myself and get this figured out and get my career back on track and not worry about who I came home to or didn't come home to. That's when I met Linda. So that was about a year ago. Almost, yeah, I met in October of 2015.
Yeah.
Physically, we've been communicating online for quite a while, but first time I met her, and that's when I knew that by that time I had a pretty good suspicion that she might be the one. And I base a lot on how I feel, what I sense, what I not necessarily left brain stuff, right brain stuff is important to me too. And so the feeling was the feeling that I wanted to have. So we got to know. She moved up here. Things were perfect. They weren't always easy, but it was more perfect than not. And we got married last month. Along the way, both of us are asked all the time, do you know of anybody that I could with both men and women, and of all ages? And I think that especially spiritual people have a hard time in finding someone that they could have a relationship with. And so we decided to launch this program, which we call SoulSpark, that is primarily a process where people can grow, where people can heal themselves of the past, which is probably the biggest block we all have to having the relationships that we want, because we are so attached to our past that we can't see beyond that. And we've put together a workshop called SoulSpark, and we'll be taking this dog and pony show on the road pretty soon. But we wanted to set up these introductory calls so people could, we could meet people could then network and let people know what we were doing and where we were going and when we were going to be in their area and what this SoulSpark is. We do know a lot of people who are looking for mates, and so that is part of what we will be doing, is connecting the dots for people. But that's not the primary focus of what we want to do with this. And it's more than simply creating relationships. It's helping people create the life, a grander, more satisfying, more enjoyable, more rewarding life than they ever thought possible. And between us, we have a lot of years of experience wandering in the wilderness, having our experiences that some people might look at as divorces, but I call them experiences.
I call them lessons.
And so it's, whether it's an experience or a lesson depends on what you do with it. But the primary focus that we want to do with this particular workshop is to help people understand what's holding them back and let them see how they can become the person they want to be And so they can find the person that they want to be with. And one of our little mottos is to find the one, you have to be the one. And I think that what we do in our workshop is to help people do an inventory of who they are, what they want, what their drop dead things are, the walk away points, where if they don't have this, then I'm not going to be interested in them. And the thing is what we want to do is open people's minds and hearts, because you never know what your soulmate's going to look like. And it may not be what you think they're going to look like. And so, I wasn't particularly looking for somebody that was 3 feet tall.
Yeah, I'm 5 foot tall.
Oh, sorry. But that's that guy thing.
Yeah.
But measurements aren't our thing. But it's,
Clearly.
the bottom line is, and what we want to do with the call today for the people that are on the call is just simply let you know what we're doing, introduce ourselves, and let you know that yes, there is a intention of finding the person that will make your life complete. Although that in and of itself is probably a mistake that we all do in perception, in thinking that we need somebody to be complete. But certainly, I always look at it 1 + 1 = 11, and that's the law of synergy. And so sometimes when you meet somebody that has got similar interests, has similar vibration, and by that I mean attitude and the way they look at life and the way that they perceive life, then you can enjoy life that much more. One thing I'm going to give a quick example of what I'm talking about, then I'm going to let Linda talk before she starts hitting me with her elbow in the ribs. But one thing it was explained to me one time is that people are at different vibratory rates. And like I said, that's how you look at life, whether you're happy or depressed or sad or angry or whatever your predominant emotion is. That kind of sets what people refer to as vibratory rate. I think that, that's kind of not an exact term, but basically your attitude, your perceptions, your beliefs, your programming, all of that goes into your vibratory rate. When people are at roughly the same or within a range of the same vibratory rate, they connect. They are attracted to each other. They are in sync. They resonate with each other. All of those terms are harmonic terms, which tries to explain why people are attracted to each other than just simple lust. And that's another thing that we go into, and how do you know it's love versus lust? But the problem with most people is that they are at a completely different vibratory level from somebody else, and they try to make it work. They try to make it fit because there's something about that person they really like and 20 things that they don't like. So they try, because of that one thing, they try to make the square peg fit in the round hole, and eventually it doesn't work. So, and it may take a while. The second thing is that people are always growing. They're always changing their vibratory rates. And if people are changing their vibratory rates at a different rate, sometimes people outgrow each other. And that's why long-term relationships disintegrate, and it's because their vibratory rates have become so different that it's a constant, it's like fingernails on the blackboard. So that's my explanation of how people are attracted to each other and why people sometimes the relationship starts off wonderfully, but then it doesn't end up very well. But what we do in this workshop is explain to you how all of that works, what you can do to make sure it lasts forever, and how to figure out whether that certain somebody is the person that you really want to be with the rest of your life. And if you don't have somebody on the radar screen, we've got lots of blips. So, we have lots of people that are looking for, who are spiritual, which is one of the biggest problems most spiritual people have these days, is finding somebody that is spiritually oriented and is not just interested in making money or having 2.3 children, a 2-bedroom house and a garage. They know that there's more to life than that. So we don't want to put people together until we have some idea that they are compatible. And so it's we let things grow organically. And certainly we hope to have these calls. People can look at other people on the call and say, well, maybe I might like being, communicating with them. But all of that's just synergy. That's, the way the energy flows. And we talk in terms like that all the time because that's our backgrounds and our focus. So I don't know if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, or Linda, I'm sure you've got some things you'd like to say.
I do. And Mindy, though, already, I'm going to give you the message she just wrote me. Here, why don't you read this? Because I think it's for you to answer. I'm going to speak a little bit to this thing about, who we think we deserve, versus, who we deserve versus what our laundry list is. And I realize these days, with a lot of the online dating thing, we're asked to fill out questionnaires. Like the questionnaires are some kind of super key to all the components that exist within us that are going to dictate, not only who we are for someone else, but who someone else is for us. And we're so crazy these days about filling in that laundry list that a lot of people, even if the boxes are all ticked off except for one, they won't even make it to the first date. And what that is a function of, for a lot of times, is people are hiding behind the computer. Rejection is a lot easier to take when it's not face to face. Rejection or awkwardness in particular is not so awkward on the computer. Although personally, I've been flamed on Match.com by people years ago, and I'm certain that still happens today. And it still was surprisingly painful because I did have the computer in between me. But we have to learn to be courageous and brave and take some risk and really allow for there to be some mystery. With the questionnaires, they're asking you everything except for what kind of toilet paper do you use. And if that's going to be a deal breaker, maybe you should just resign now and not get in a relationship. So one of the things that we're really committed to is you finding out who you are, you finding out where your breakthroughs still need to happen, why you keep on repeating, choosing people from your past over and over again. Sometimes we choose our dad. I'm just going to speak for the women right now. Sometimes for guys, we choose our mom. There's incompletion there. We want someone to mother us and to love us like the love we never had. And the list goes on. My father was a compulsive gambler. My tendency personally was to always choose a man with some sort of addiction, whether he was in recovery or not. I was attracted to that quality. I liked that risky business kind of behavior in a man. God forbid I should pick someone who is like, a three-piece suit norm guy, with no issues. And even quite frankly, to this day, I would find that exceedingly boring. so that's why I didn't pick that kind of person. But I will say too, like Gray, I've been married 3 times. I've been divorced 3 times, I should say. This is my 4th marriage. And I've learned from each one of those relationships more about who I am and what I kept on doing that wasn't working than necessarily pointing the finger to my ex-partner and finding out, oh, it was about him and he did this and he did that. No, it's like what I did. I signed on, because you always, if you're committing to a marriage, you're choosing someone back, in a woman's case, right? Because we're usually asked to be married, us asked to be men. So the response.
Hey, listen, I'm listening to a very interesting thing that a friend of mine is doing on the computer that I didn't know about.
Oh, hi, Mindy. We can hear you now.
Oh shit! Sorry. Hi.
That's okay. That's okay.
Were you talking about us?
You keep on talking to whomever it is and get them on. Do you need the link?
Hey, no, it's my dad. Dad, I'll call you in a little bit.
Hi, Dad.
Bye. Okay, Dad? Okay. I'm not going to be there at 11 like I thought. Okay, bye.
Okay.
How did that happen?
Oh, we love it.
Oops.
It's like, that's how life happens, though, right? And it's how you respond to that kind of oh shit stuff in life.
Okay, sorry. Hi, guys. Keep going. Love ya.
Okay, love you too. So, and also like what Gray was saying, when we first got together, it wasn't easy, and it wasn't because of he and I weren't easy, but things externally were going on for the both of us independently that, in some relationships, I would have already walked away, and just said, look, I got to handle my shit on my own. You got to, do your thing. Yours is like much more calm than mine, but, he had all the space in the world to be my sounding board. And I even looked at him last night and thought, and this is a really odd thought, I thought, I could even fail with this man. If I was going to fail, this was the man who I wanted to be with. Deep thought, right? Who knew I had them? So anyway, getting back to what we're looking to provide in SoulSpark is really have it be an arena, a safe and intimate place for people to explore, what they've been doing in the past that hasn't been working for them. Really see the story that goes along with that. Be given the opportunity to fully own that story and whatever responsibility you need to take or not take in that, and put it in a nice, pretty little treasure chest somewhere. Because people say, get rid of your story. You never get rid of your story. It's a bunch of bull. Get a nice little box, whether it's a Tiffany ring box for you, or whether it's a little treasure chest with a cool key, or whatever that looks like. But you get to put your past history in that box once you've learned from it, and put it right next to your little nightstand. And then move on with a fresh outlook, a fresh perspective, and a fresh canvas to create a relationship not only with yourself, but with someone else for the first time that's free from your past. And that isn't necessarily done easily in a vacuum. That's why we're here. So we're your sounding boards for that. We work in tandem with you during our course to have things become apparent to you about, the desires even that you have, that you get to look and see how those are historically based and not based necessarily from who you are right now. You may have made a decision, like we were watching Practical Magic the other day. Yes, he didn't lose his man card. He actually gained a big fat man card for watching it with me. But at one point, Sandra Bullock, she's writing out I would say she's probably about a 9-year-old, 10-year-old little girl. She's writing out all the qualities that she wants in a man. And she kind of tucks that away later. And then that man, shows up. And, a lot of us have done that, but that diary is in our head. And those qualities that we write down or reside in our head, that reside in our head are not necessarily qualities that are fresh and created from nothing. They're created in reaction to something that happened, or something that was missing, or something that you desire so deeply to have because someone else had it and you didn't. So again, going back to this whole thing about what we provide in the courses is a place for you to really explore what's missing for you in your life with regards to you being fully with yourself first. Because I promise you, until you can do that, whomever you bring into your life will be there or chosen by you to fill in some blank space that you didn't work on or have been avoiding working on or didn't even see to work on before they got there. And a couple things are going to happen. Either you'll get annoyed with them because they keep on having that part of you show up when they're there in the relationship with you, and you become a negative reaction to that. Or they are going to fulfill that part of you, and then you will have outgrown them because you chose them out of need and not want. There's a big distinction there. We'll talk about more about need versus want in the course. So anyway, I'm not quite sure if I've touched on everything. Oh, the vibrational thing goes. What I just spoke of goes a little bit into the same vibrational thing that Gray was just speaking of, that you can count on that there are going to be different rates of growth vibrationally in a relationship if you're in a long-term relationship. That makes sense, right? Everybody grows, hopefully. So the thing is one needs to be aware that that's going to happen, and what's your particular commitment going to be from the get-go as a couple and as a fully both feet in, both hands, both feet, all fingers, all toes partner to raising your own vibration if need be, or being patient with the other person for them to grow, and not being judgmental about that. I will say personally, my personal experience, there was a lot of disparity, not only from people that I chose in the beginning who were quite different from me, but I was enthralled with because I was trying to duplicate my father, that were never going to be a fit, and people who were fit to begin with, but we grew apart so far spiritually, and by spiritually, I'll speak for myself, Ray can speak for himself. I mean awakened. I don't mean religious in any way. I'm not, although some people, religion is important with them. They want to be with someone with a similar faith, and that's important to them. And that's also, I think, important in that list of deal breakers that Gray was speaking of earlier. You need to know what are the basic things that that you would walk away from someone about, and also, what's not so important, what you're willing to acquiesce on, and also where have you acquiesced too much in the past that you need to create some boundaries in. Again, this is all about learning who you are first, and that's what we say about being the one as part of our motto, or as Gray says in his great Southern accent, motto. I love when you say that. You say motto. Anyway, I love it, really. He gave me that look like I was judging him, but really I'm not. I love it. So anyway, I'm going to let Gray take it from here. What else would you like to share?
Well, one thing that I think that is one of the biggest problems with relationships that we go into depth in this workshop is maturity. And I can't overestimate. I can't overestimate how important it is for two people to come into a relationship as mature adults. And the problem is that so many relationships fail because one or both of the people are not mature adults. I have a pretty well-rounded background in substance abuse counseling and also divorce counseling and family counseling and all that sort of stuff. So things like codependence are things that I see all the time. And that's a psychological term that's used in addiction therapy a lot because people don't understand when they're being codependent and when they're being dependent or when they're being independent. And so for any relationship to grow and thrive, you have to understand where you are on your maturity scale. And going back to what Linda said is that when people are looking for someone to take care of them, they're actually looking for a parental figure, or they have unresolved issues with their one or the other of their parents. And so they're looking to fix that with the person that they are subconsciously choosing to have a relationship with. And as a result, unless you change how you're showing up in the relationship, you're going to keep having the same result over and over and over again, which is you may find somebody that is exactly like your parent with exactly the same issues. They just look different. And like that old saying, insanity is repeating the same behavior, expecting different results. That's what we all do in relationships until one day somebody points out that, well, have you tried that? And so that's what we hope to do with this workshop, is to show people how these personality traits, such as habitual thought thinking and codependence and dependence and victim mentality. And because if you can't come into a relationship as a whole person, it's, unless your faults exactly match the other person's faults, it's probably not going to last very long. And you're going to be left wondering what happened. And one of the things, I'll give this example, and we talk about it more often than not, is that one of the things that Linda has the problem with me is that, I guess the best way to say it is that I've been trying to explain to her that I don't need her. I want her, but I don't need her to be happy. I don't need her to live my life. She adds a lot to my life, and something I've been looking for quite a while, all of my life. And we have a, we are watching the synergies of this relationship grow. But the bottom line is that she cannot manipulate me by subconsciously working on my fears. And I'm not saying she would ever do this consciously or intentionally, but that's how people come to relationships, in that they subconsciously identify the fears of that other person and manipulate that other person by using that. And I'm not saying anybody on this call does that, but I can tell you, having tried thousands of divorce cases, that happens all the time. And it could be, we were watching Passage to India last night, and it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because one of the things that especially young people have a problem with is trying to figure out what roles they're supposed to play in their relationship. And am I the father figure? Am I the mother figure? And gender doesn't matter. Either the man is taking care of the woman or the woman's taking care of the man. In a lot of relationships, they both expect that from each other. They both expect that other person to take care of them, to wash their clothes, to make their bed, to cook their meals. If you come into a relationship and somebody is expecting you to take care of them, then that's putting a pressure on you that doesn't need to be there. Now, if you've got two people who are fully mature and individualized and can take care of themselves, and they work together, and all they're thinking about is, how do I serve that other person? How can I make their life easier? Not, oh my God, I've got to make up the bed because they won't. That's where resentments start going, and that's how relationships start to unfold. But the point is that a lot of things are going on in relationships that people aren't trained to spot, and I am, and Linda certainly is as well. And what we do is explain to people why people act the way they act. And that way, when you're confronted with that behavior, you'll know how to respond to it. And one of my favorite sayings is, don't buy into their bullshit. Because their story has nothing to do with you. And if you allow people to manipulate you by their story, then you're a goner. You're going to suffer at some point in time. That's not going to work for you, because if you're not focused on your own happiness, you're focused on somebody else's happiness. And if they're not happy, you're not happy.
Yeah.
That's a classic definition of codependence. And want to get away from that. And so if somebody, I don't know, Mindy, you asked a question about, let's see.
I'll address it. Well, Mindy, really, I'll just kind of do the parameters of it, the parentheses around it, is that Mindy's, in the past have chosen people for her that I'm going to give you my opinion, Mindy, and you can either give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on it, but I know you, and I've seen you go through them. And she's chosen people to be in a relationship with that she was needed by. And she got something fulfilled because they needed her. And she's a server in life. She's a speech pathologist. Is that right, Mindy? So she's a helper type person. So she chose people who needed her kind of more in that capacity. And now she's finally has someone who's chosen her, who really is normal, who's really, really liking her. And she's feeling uncomfortable with that. She doesn't know how to be with someone who really cares for her. Am I right, Mindy? Am I on there? Oh, I can't hear you now. Oh, you're writing back.
Oh, I forgot I can talk.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So you're now with someone who's normal, who doesn't have that and the relationship doesn't have that codependent cloud over it, right? And you don't know what to do with it though, right? Am I right?
Right.
Okay,
right.
So I'm going to share something with you because it's what's come up for me being with Gray. Now, I did take, as you know, a number of years off to not date at all before I met Gray. And because I had been in a relationship, I like to say, since the 6th grade, which is true. I was in a relationship more in my life than not in my life. And I realized I really needed to learn who I was and how to be with my own, awkward silence of myself and all that ickiness and loneliness and all that stuff that can come up for you when you're just with yourself before I started dating again. And even though, I had a huge, huge breakthrough, I noticed there's still some old patterns that comes up with Gray and I. And I want to clarify one point. When he said where I get hung up is, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that he doesn't need me. What he means is he doesn't need me to cook for him. He doesn't need me to do his laundry. He doesn't need me to help him with anything. It's the first time in my life that I have not known how to just be and receive his graciousness without responding in kind out of manipulation to make sure that he sticks around. Because that's all I did in the past, was I watched, I was repeating what I saw my mother do as very subservient, intelligent. Italian mother, but you know what you do to keep your man, you got to keep your man, you got to keep your man, right? If I had a mantra, got to keep your man, right? And so I would do all the things. That's why I've been married so many times. Guys love to be married to me. It's great, right? It's like being married to a maid and a whore at the same time. It's terrific. Did that make you uncomfortable?
Facial expression was that Gray, that facial expression response, you guys need to gift that one. That was perfect. What she said and how you responded was classic moment. Watch it again.
Yeah. So you know, God's honest truth. You know, I you know, not more than just a couple weeks ago, you know, I was really up against it. I'm used to being the bread earner in the relationship too, and it all comes down to I have never trusted any of my partners ever. I wanted to, but I couldn't have both feet in, both hands in, all fingers, all toes. With Gray, I can. He expects nothing of me except, you know, for me to be here to, you know, accept his eye candy, right? Eye candy, and to accept his love for me. And sometimes I think I don't know. I mean, I think it's important that I love him back, but I mean, it's so not what I'm used to. That it feels, Mindy, and I'm really speaking about your, you know, relationship here that you're in the beginning stages of. It sounds like it's been a long-term friendship, but rolling into a relationship that I would love for you to look to see where your trust issues are, you know, about this. What do you not trust about it so that you could actually be with somebody who didn't need you? It's a big deal because it'll press every button you have. It will, it'll leave you confused. It'll leave you speechless, and it will leave you with no drama. Surprisingly enough, right? So I appreciate what you shared too about, you know, you taking, being open now to seeing that the package can look different and the contents can look different, and it can be right though, that this could be the right one. So anyway, that's what I wanted to address about that. And I also want to say one more thing too about this for the other people who are going to watch this later. You know, this call is really about you getting to know us as well. This isn't just about you sharing what we're doing with other people. It's really important you get to know who we are, because we're going to be here for you through this whole process. It's not just, you know, this conversation or a one-day event. We're going to be there for you for the whole thing. You know, clear into the whole, you know, matchmaking aspect of it if you care to go into that. We're here for you for refresher courses once you're with your soulmate. If you guys need to do a little work together, we'll do one-on-one consulting with you as well. You can either work with Gray or myself, or you can work with us together. We can do it face-to-face if we're in your town, or if you're here, wherever we are when you need that, or we can do it via Zoom. As you see, this does work really well once you get the electronic part sorted out. So, Mindy, before we move on, did you have any questions, or was there anything you wanted to share? And Yar, also you as well, as both of you, feel free to jump in, please.
Well, this is Mindy, and I'll just say that it's always a problem when you know that I'm able to have a voice, because it's hard for me not to talk and contribute.
Right.
But, you know, I have known you a long time, Linda, and you and I have had a lot of these types of conversations. And I, you know, you're right on. You have a good eye for those underlying things that are hard to see, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Mindy.
Well, let me jump in here and explain another aspect to this, and that is we are all the products of our past. And until you meet somebody who has gone through what you've gone through and knows how to rise above that and turn that into a positive and how to do that, then you're basically doomed to keep doing it the same way because you don't know how to do it any different. And so that's the importance of these types of workshops, although I think that we ought to start calling them love shops.
I think I like that. I like that.
The point is that they're all, I could, that's what our webinars and seminars are all about, is identifying the things that people do that think that that's normal behavior, which actually is counterproductive. And let me give you a perfect example, and that's what I call the balance sheet approach to relationships. Well, I did this, and so I deserve that. And you have a plus column and you have a minus column, and you're always keeping score. And I'm not the rhetorical you, not you on this call, but people keep score in relationships. And that's why relationships fail. Because if you're keeping score, then you're never going to be happy in the relationship. Because most people would agree that they always do more in a relationship than the other person. That's what they think, because they want to be the good guys. But the reality of the situation is that if you've actually chosen somebody that's halfway compatible with you, then you're probably both doing the best you can. And what needs to happen is people need to start being honest with each other. Rather than being passive aggressive and saying, oh, that's okay. Well, especially when it's not okay. Then we need to find kind and gentle ways of explaining that's not okay. And here's why. Of course, if you spend all your time doing that, you're probably not with the person that you need to be with anyway. But if somebody does something and it irritates you, it's okay to say, it's that irritating, but that's my issue, not yours. Mm-hmm. And so when you get the presence of mind and you're not equating this to, from time to time, we catch each other carrying our baggage. In other words, from time to time, I have issues because that's what people did to me in the past. That doesn't mean that's what's happening right now. But because I have these memories, and often subconscious memories, of similar things happening in the past, and that's what happened when that happened, I'm projecting that into our relationship, and I have to catch myself doing that, because that doesn't mean that's going to happen in this relationship. And if she gets worried because she's not in control of the relationship, I just have to remind her, well, that's your past. That's not what's going on here. And so let's take a look at that. Don't worry about it, but just recognize the fact that that's the past, not now. That was then, this is now. And so a lot of times we get into relationships with really, really good people, and we project what happened to us in the past onto that relationship, and then it breaks up or it puts stress on the relationship because the other person doesn't understand why you're stressing out. And, until you can start being honest about, well, this is what happened to me, and I'm scared that's going to happen again, then there's no way to work through that. If you've got that buried deep inside of you and it's a festering wound, then all that's going to do is blow up the relationship. So what we do in these workshops is we take you through a series of exercises that help identify if you've got these kinds of things working in your subconscious, and are you projecting that onto your relationships, or are you carrying that baggage? And then we give you some exercises on how to let go of all of that. One of the things that I continually learn more and more about is that what we focus on creates our reality. And that manifests in a lot of different ways. But the point is that if you've got 10 things you can't control and one thing you can control, focus on the one thing you can control and just let the rest of it sort itself out. And most of the time what happens is when you let go of that need to control, the issue disappears. Because it's your need to control that creates the issue in the first place. And a lot of times this is so deeply subconscious, nobody's aware of that they're doing that. Yeah. And so it only is something that I can see because I've watched so many marriages fall apart and ended up representing one side or the other. You know, one of the things I always used to ask the client when they came in for a divorce is why did they get married in the first place? Because they've sat there for an hour telling me all of the sins that this other person has committed and what a bad person this is and what an innocent victim they are. And they just want to tear the guy in half and throw him away, or tear the woman in half and throw her away. And I just say, well, why did you marry him in the first place? And they said, well, I was in love. And I said, well, what changed? You can't fall out of love. That's one thing people don't understand. You cannot fall out of love. Now, the rest of the stuff can certainly cloud and cover up the love and make it so painful that you can't get in touch with the love anymore. That doesn't mean the relationship should fail, but it does mean that people are going to have to change. And what we do is help people, show people where a little bit of change here can have a huge effect over there. And I can tell you that I did not learn any of this out of a book. I learned all of this through life experiences. And that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And so anything that we suggest or ask people to do is because we know it'll help them have an aha moment and allow them to see, well, gosh, I am doing that. Right. And so and if I stop doing that, maybe the other person will change. I can say that I'm a lot better at destroying relationships than I am repairing. Lawyers aren't trained to help marriages succeed. In fact, I think one of the biggest problems with lawyers today is that they make matters so much worse, and they create conflict where it doesn't need to be created. But that's a whole nother story. The point is that what we want to help people see, either in relationship or looking for relationships, is the things that they're bringing into the relationship that can be counterproductive. And that's why we want people to go through the course before we do the matchmaking part, because, it's like that old thing, no matter where you go, you're going to be there when you get there. And so if you don't change the stuff that's causing conflict in the relationship, it doesn't matter who you're paired with, it's going to fail. And so what we want is to have people who at least have an understanding of who they are, what they bring to relationships, how relationships work, and how they can have a really happy, mutually satisfactory relationship. And the problem with this, we talk about soulmates all the time. The problem with it is that, sometimes at least one person in the relationship has to be the adult. And one of them, if you don't have one adult at any given moment in the relationship, it doesn't have to be the same person all the time. But if you don't have at least one adult in a relationship, then it's just going to be chaos. And by being an adult, I mean somebody that can have the presence of mind and be grounded and centered enough to know that, to accept the person for who they are and talk through whatever the issue is. And you don't have to solve it. You just have to be able to sit there and hear them, to be able to listen to them, and to say, I understand. And it's not, you know, one of the biggest problems is that people go into relationships with totally unrealistic expectations. And then when they get to the place they're always going to get to, and that's where the things falling apart, that's too late. You know, that's too late to save the relationship unless you're willing to completely back away, reinvent yourself, and then come back together.
Right.
You can do that in the same place, but it's a lot more difficult when you've woken up and the other person has totally different expectations, wants, and desires than you do, and you didn't. And people don't take the time to discover this before there's some kind of commitment is made. And you know, it's like this kind of what we want to share with people is how we did it incorrectly the first so many times in our lives. So you can maybe say, "Oops, that's starting to sound familiar," and you can say, "Okay, I'm not going to do that." And then we can start talking about we want to do role playing. We want to show people how a positive way of dealing with an issue versus a counterproductive way of dealing with an issue. And you know, these are not things that people learn. We ought to, you know, I firmly believe that we ought to have courses in this in grade school rather than history, which nobody remembers anyway, or calculus. When was the last time you ran a calculus equation? And so it's something that is kind of like remedial math. We all need to understand what makes relationships work and be successful. And we're not taught, and it's nobody's fault. It's just nobody knows until you find somebody that's done it wrong so many times. They say, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better way.
Right. And that's really how we came about too. You know, between the two of us, we've got I've got 5 marriages. And I hate to say failed because I don't think they failed. They were there for a reason. They call me a fatalist. And like I said earlier, you know, I know we've both learned from all of them. And so it's important, I think, for us at least to share, you know, what we've learned and for you to try on the coat of the things that we've learned and keep on the coat if it fits well. If not, take it off and take the parts of that coat, the sleeves or the pockets that feel better for you and feel right for you, and weave them into your own coat, to your own future and the relationship that you're looking for, both with yourself and with someone else. The thing that I really wanted to speak to that Grace spoke of earlier was this thing about someone's got to be the parent.
No, the adult.
The adult at all time. You know, so one of you's got to be the adult. And I will say that, you know, women have a tendency. Ray may think differently. But I'm a woman, right? I'm going to speak from there. That women have a tendency to take on mothering not only their children but their husbands as well. And after a while, it becomes really taxing. It's also a way to stay in control, though. And in my case, you know, being the adult all the time allowed for my spouses to go out and do whatever they wanted, while I stayed at home being stoic because I was being the adult. But then I would secretly complain to myself about how they were never responsible and they all went and played, right? But I took on that role. So, you know, if you see yourself in that, looking in your past, you know, were you taking on the adult role the whole time? I'm going to make an assertion that in an ideal relationship, or a more ideal relationship, at least for Gray and I, is that adult role is transient. Sometimes one is the adult, sometimes the other is the adult. I think for someone to be the only adult in the relationship for the full length of the relationship is quite a burden to take on. And yeah, I would invite you to look and see, you know, who you've been in your own relationships in the past with regards to that. And if you're looking at your next one, just certainly keep that on your list of things you may want to look at. And also, the things that we're going to ask you to do in our courses are things that we have done ourselves personally. I do have close to 40 years of transformational education in my background, so I do have some very specific training in the areas of breakthrough. But that being said, there's not one thing in the course that you would find intimidating or degrading or awkward or anything like that. We always intend to have it be a very safe space where you can speak freely and where we keep the numbers limited to a smaller number so that the group can be intimate and you can feel more comfortable in expressing yourself fully there. I'm going to stop a moment and ask Yar and Mindy if there's anything they'd like to ask or share. Take yourselves off of mute if you're on mute.
I'm good.
Okay. Mindy,
Well, I'm very filled up with a lot of things that I had no intention were going to enter my my brain today. This was, a big surprise when I got your invitation for this. And although I followed along what you guys are developing with SoulSpark and have been extremely interested in it, what you've said today could not have landed on these ears at a better time. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, both.
Well, one thing I also firmly believe is that as we all can shine brighter than the sun, we also have our moments. Everyone has their moments of doubt and pain and acting out and not being very nice. And of course,
Linda's perfect.
Ta-da!
present company and the Pomeranians accepted.
That was my halo.
The level of pain depends upon the level of your consciousness, obviously, but and by that awareness. But the thing is that I know that people can be trained. People can learn. And if they really are interested in salvaging or creating a relationship, then most people will want to know this stuff so that they can be just as happy as the other. Looking at my last marriage, which was for 18 years, I think my wife was at her lowest point when I chose to be happy, regardless of what she was doing. Because there was a lot of codependency going on and a lot of manipulation going on. And I just refused to participate in that anymore. And she got really, really angry about that because she could no longer control the situation by guilt and shame and everything else. So there are people who don't want to learn. And I can say that, I did take the step of going to family counseling before we separated, and I didn't separate until the family counselor came to me and said, this is the first time I've ever, in 20 years of counseling, I've ever had to tell somebody this, but you either accept her the way she is right now or leave because she will not change. And that's when I elected not to participate in that melodrama anymore. That doesn't mean I'm a nice guy. I certainly contributed to that as much as she did. But my point is that if we can stay in a moment, if there is a moment where there's fear running rampant, people are reacting, you stop breathing, you're in monkey brain, it's fight or flight, and you don't know what to do. If you use the things that we will teach you to do, you can actually salvage the situation and work through it.
Right.
And in a way that will not alienate the other person. That's the benefit of having done it so many times the wrong way, that and learning how to do it in a non-confrontational, loving, and kind way, that you can actually stop it before it even gets started. I see from time to time when issues come up between Linda and I that I can, I'm sitting there, actually, it goes through my mind, the old way I would have handled this would be do A, B, and C, which would be guaranteed to create Armageddon. But now I've learned some ways that I can sit there and take a deep breath and look at what she's really trying to say and get down to what it is that we need to really focus on, rather, because it's never what the surface is. It's never about what the issue is, whether I put butter on the wrong side of my toast or whatever it is. That isn't what really is going on. Usually it turns into just stuff that is all about life and growing through stuff and learning how to trust people and that I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to cheat on her, and I'm not going to do whatever her exes did. So the strategies and stuff that we put into this course, I think, will help a lot of people. And we're really excited about offering it because we know it will help people. And it's different than anything I've ever seen. I'll be the first to say I've spent probably around $15,000 on dating services and never got it, and didn't get one date. It was just ridiculous. So matchmaking doesn't work so well without the other part, which is the transformational self-growth, learning what your issues are and resolving those, healing those. And that way you can show up in a relationship with somebody who mirrors you and can offer you the same thing. And if they're not quite there yet, you can certainly help them get there.
Right. So even if you don't use the matchmaking part of, SoulSpark, we're here to support you in, like you mentioned, relationships that you're just now exploring, getting yourself really grounded in what it is that you want and need with fresh eyes for the first time in your life. As well as, for people who are already in long-term committed relationships and have gotten kind of sideways, we forget that we do need to, reassess. I hear, people saying, oh, we made a marriage contract. Well, to me, that sounds kind of like, binding, like you're not going to grow over the years, because if you are, that contract needs to change with the growth that you have. So I'm more about you having your common things that you're grounded in together, your commitment that you're going to grow together. You're going to be all in, both of you, regardless of what comes up, and you're going to work on it. But what you need to do first is we all need to work on ourselves before we get into that relationship, because if that stuff is not worked out, it's going to come up in your relationship, dollars to donuts, and it's going to wind up impacting your relationship. And chances are you're going to think it's them, and it's not. So we're here to support you and working you out first, whatever that may be, so that you can work on that relationship that you deserve, so you can have a beautiful life that you deserve. And we're going to be coming to a town near you. Our next stop is Washington, D.C. in October. And then we've got California on the books in November. And then we've also got out into the future, we've got Florida, and we've got Philadelphia also. So Philadelphia, where Denise is going to help us. Anyway, got one other place out there too that just got on the books. Oh, in Oregon too. So please let people know what we're up to. We're certainly going to be doing some more telechats like this. I think they're beneficial with technology today. It can be a give and take conversation. It's not just us, talking into thin air here. We've got people on the other end, and it's lovely. Thank you for showing up today. You can find us of course, on www.soulspark.global. We also have an Instagram account. I'd love it if you guys would go like us on Instagram, and we'll like you right back. And of course, you know that we have a page on Facebook, but what we really love to do is meet you face to face. And even if it's just kind of face to face, not just in other kind of social media formats. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gray. I'm just going to say thank you. We appreciate you. And
well, the only thing I was going to say is that
what?
we certainly are available for consulting and counseling. If you want to just contact us directly for a one-on-one, that'd be fine. And Squeak wants to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And have a great, fun, happy fall weekend.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank
you.
A link on this if you want to watch it again.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, perfect. Bye.
Bye.
His name is scary. Yeah.